also known as Munyang or Montreal, the unceded and unsurrendered territory of the Kanien'kehá:ka Mohawk Nation, the meeting place of many First Nations, including the Huron-Wendat, the Abenaki, and the Anishinaabeg. This toolkit is really a labor of community. It initially comes out of a desire, I think, from both myself and the Imaa team, as well as the Imaa membership at the 2024 National Conference in Halifax, to have a clearer, accessible to everyone advocacy structure for our sector. And following that, an advocacy committee was struck, and everyone in the presenters today, part of that committee, and really they worked. The committee, comprised of members from across the country, worked to create this cohesive document with the help of the Imaa staff. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to Annette Hegel, who is the chair of the advocacy committee. And I just want to shout out that Zanine is here from Vivo, Chris Gaiman from VTape, and Rachel Broussard from Paved, who will also be speaking and really represent like the breadth of Imaa membership that directly participated in this, though lots and lots of other people obviously informed how we thought of the toolkit.
Thanks so much, Barbara. It's great that we're going to have the opportunity to actually talk through this toolkit. Just quick housekeeping notes. Please stay muted if you can, and please use the chat for questions. So we'll keep monitoring it. We have the agenda is just to kind of frame it of why and how we did this. There's the overview of the toolkit itself, how it's structured, the importance of the core values that we're putting at the forefront as these media art specific value added. Then Chris and I were going to go in a back and forth with deep dives into the specific value propositions, and kind of take you through how those are laid out in the toolkit. And then we're going to have a hopefully robust Q&A session, where we can all like talk through some strategies and tactics, takeaways, and then Barbara is actually going to pitch the Canadian Arts Coalition's Arts Vote 2025 campaign. I would like to thank everybody on the committee who has worked, and lots of people have come in and out. Many are here since we gathered in Halifax. And I do really want to thank Tessa for doing the incredible job of taking our brain dumps and actually structuring it into the structure that we now have that makes it accessible and usable for you guys to do this mix and match kind of thing. So that was just brilliant. And all of a sudden we're like, oh, this is making us look really good. Anyway, so thank you, Tessa, for that. The reason why we did this and we really pushed for it, and we met many times since last fall to early this year, is that we're facing a real possibility of a federal government that is extremely hostile to arts and public funding. Particularly this conservative platform is like signaling deep cuts to culture, public broadcasting, and community programming. And as things have kind of changed in the landscape with the Carney crowning, there seem to be actually some key writings that are now open and up for grabs. And I think for us to step in and mobilize our sector in particular really, really hard right now will be super important. I'm going to put that in so it's on the record also for the recording. I think this is 338 Canada. That's the site where you can monitor where the swing ridings are and see if you are in that swing riding, and in particular then kind of start doing some work. So I'll hand it over to Rachel, who will take us through the toolkit.
Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Broussard at Paved Arts, and I'm in Saskatoon, Treaty 6 territory and homeland of the Métis. So starting with the 2025 Media Arts Advocacy Toolkit, this is a resource to support you in your advocacy, in your efforts, whether you're writing grants, emailing decision makers, or preparing for meetings. It does a good job of outlining the key value propositions and supporting evidence that demonstrate why we in the media arts matter so much to the overall cultural scene in Canada. All right, so I'll move on to intended audience. The toolkit is designed to be flexible for federal, provincial, and municipal contexts, and it's most effective when engaging decision makers such as MPs and candidates, funders like Canada Council and Canadian Heritage, and the local arts councils. So like Annette is saying, now is a really important time to put this toolkit into action with the upcoming federal election. So let's talk about our media arts sector by the numbers. They're like most decision makers really pay attention to stats. So we do have a lot of good numbers in the toolkit to help you speak their language in a way. So we can say confidently that over 1.7 million attendees have come to media arts presentations, and nearly 600,000 in workshops. Our network across the country has over 37,000 members and 10,000 plus volunteers. And we can also say that in 2024, the media arts reached over 2 million people. So if you think about the overall population of Canada, it's almost like a quarter of our whole country is being reached by the media arts, which is huge. And we have these numbers thanks to a lot of the reports that your various media arts organizations have given from across the country. So I'll pass it on to Nazanin to talk about the 5 core values of the Media Arts Toolkit.
Hey everyone, I'm Nazanin. I'm the Events and Communication Manager at Vivo Media Arts in Vancouver, BC, situated on unceded traditional territories of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I'll just take a few minutes to talk about these 5 core values. So let's start with education and skills development. So media arts organizations are keen helping artists develop their skills, whether they're like just starting out or already established. These organizations provide access to equipment, hands-on training, and mentorship. They offer ways to learn the ropes of media production that you might not get in traditional educational programs. They're the big part of shaping the next generation of Canadian filmmakers and media artists. So next is competitiveness. Media arts organizations are pushing the boundaries of new technology like virtual reality and AI long before it hits mainstream media. By supporting experimentation with these new tools, they help artists stay ahead of the curve. At the same time, they're developing tech solutions like video on demand platforms that not only help the arts, but also contribute to the tech industry in Canada. Community building is next. Media arts organizations are more than just places for artists to work, obviously. They're places for the whole community. They host festivals, workshops, screenings that bring people together. Whether in big cities or small towns, these spaces create opportunities for everyone to get involved in culture, learn new things, connect with others, and know about media arts. The fourth one is cultural preservation and promotion. Media arts organizations help preserve and share diverse cultural identity. Through film, video, and new media, they make sure stories from marginalized communities and those that aren't always in the spotlights are told. It's about keeping unique voices alive and connecting local and international audiences through these stories. And finally, job creations. Media arts organizations generate both direct and indirect job opportunities through events, festivals, and the work they showcase. They support artists' careers and help generate economic activity in areas like tourism, hospitality, and tech, and they're a key part of the cultural economy. Thank you. I will pass it over to Chris and Annette, who will dive deeper into the details. So I think it's Chris, right? Next one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Hi, it's Chris Kamen at VTAPE. I'm in Toronto on partly Treaty 13 territory and territory covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, home of the Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas of the Credit, as well as, of course, many other First Nations people who now live and work on this land. The longer I work in this sector, the more important education and skills development sort of becomes to me in terms of the value that we bring to things. You know, as you work for longer, what you see is people's careers developing, people that you've dealt with as interns or as kind of early career people working at a festival and that kind of thing. And that's where I've really seen incredible effectiveness of our sector. And so I was interested in kind of making this argument. And it primarily is that media arts organizations like ours, small organizations, make a lot of professional education and specialized training accessible. And that's, I think, a key word, providing critical early support for artists and filmmakers. And we've kind of provided in the document a list of some more or less arbitrarily chosen people from across the country from different generations who have had support from the artist-run sort of system over the years in different ways. And we're trying to kind of point out that there's a distinction between community-based media arts education, like what we provide through an organization in Toronto like LIFT or VTAPE or through the festivals, as an alternative to formal, multi-year degree programs or certificate programs at colleges or private universities, private schools, because it allows people to enter into the field in a way that's very much designed by them for their own needs and interests. So we get people who will come in and take several workshops through a number of media arts organizations and then just start making work and showing that work and developing a career as an artist. And likewise, people who come into a production center and end up working on a number of small, low-budget, independent productions may well then end up going on to develop a career as a craftsperson in the industry and join one of the NABET or IATSE unions and develop their career in that direction. So it's a kind of alternative to more formal education, which is very efficiently delivered by us for a very low cost and is also very accessible to a wide range of people. Another thing I think that's worth pointing out is that we also do a lot of specialized training in areas that just do not come up at all in formal degree programs. And I've certainly learned that at VTAPE because students in programs, for example, in preservation and film and photo preservation kind of areas are desperate to come here because the work that we do is not covered in their programs. And so I think we can talk about skills development kind of from a whole wide range of areas, from the high tech and kind of cutting edge technology to older technology, but it's also creative, it's also business, it's all the elements of kind of an entry level career training for people going into either the arts or the cultural industries. So I think the primary kind of takeaway here is that we're providing a very cost-efficient way to provide accessible early career training for people developing careers in the arts and cultural industries, which is distinct and different from the way that education happens in informal degree granting or certificate granting programs.
Yeah,
that's
thanks.
it for me.
Thanks, Chris. Your preservation training bit is a nice segue into that's what Media Arts does. That's the cultural preservation and the promotion of what we consider Canadian culture. It's the Media Arts is the keeper and carer for the uniquely Canadian stories. Preservation and sharing diverse cultural identities. We're doing that through film, video, audio, and digital media. The media arts organizations document and archive, and I mean, off the top of my head, it's like, in Indigenous media arts is containing and preserving Indigenous languages and traditions. We support the work of immigrant and newcomer experience in documentation. And those are things that are going way back. And we also would like, we are safekeepers of local community histories. And particularly, distributors like VTape and CFMDC, we're playing a critical role in the distribution of Indigenous, racialized, 2S LGBTQ+ media art globally. And, experimental CFMDC with the experimental and feminist and politically radical film works. These are places. Media arts is the place that takes care of these things and holds them on and makes sure that we continue to be available for future generations. Just a little segue. Chris earlier was talking about an installation that was using old technology, and we needed to adapt it to new technology to actually be able to present this. That is the work that Media Arts does to keep it alive. Through that work, we're amplifying the Canadian voices, not just within the country, but also on international stages. And we're reflecting the diversity and unique perspectives. And we're building cultural legacy because we are not doing the big news, big global hits things. We're not doing Hollywood. We're actually doing the work that is done at a community level and deeply in the fabric of our identity. I mean, and it's especially right now where everybody's jumping on this kind of nationalist bandwagon of, we need to preserve our cultural sovereignty. Well, this work that we do is an incredible contribution to cultural sovereignty. Again, these are all these like these value propositions are in addition to we are supporting all these people making incredible art, but these are the things that we never talk about, and we should like really kind of screaming from the rooftops that those are the day-to-day contributions that Media Arts makes. Popping back over to Chris.
There. The argument here is that media arts organizations make it possible to create new economic activity and create new job opportunities in Canada's cultural sector. Obviously, in terms of innovation, media arts centers have long been environments for the development of new technologies, new applications of established technologies, new ways of using those kinds of works to make artwork. Again, ranging all the way from alternative film processing methods to VR and AI technology usages that are very distinct from what happens in industry contexts. We as organizations obviously employ our own arts workers, curators, programmers, technical staff, educators, administrators. We pay artists to create and show their work. And we support the development of industry professionals and small businesses so that people can become directors, producers, cinematographers, web developers, can create their production companies, can offer technical services or develop new technologies, and so on. So there are multiple levels of support for creating new economic activity that happen, both again as a kind of entry level exposure to technology and ideas, but also in terms of our direct contribution to the economy through the jobs that we maintain, and also the work that we do with professionals in their kind of independent role. So the idea is that investing in media arts organizations isn't kind of like investing in a closed bubble. It's an investment in people, and that by providing stable jobs, by supporting artists, by driving local economies, and making these things accessible to people, these organizations ensure a thriving cultural sector that benefits everyone, not just the people that work there, not just the members of the organization, but that it has a much larger impact than is obvious from the scale of the organization itself. And so we took figures from Hill Strategies. Then this is recent, so it's 2023 figures. Film and video sector is the second largest arts domain in Canada, behind visual arts, which is interesting, actually, behind visual arts, generating 11.3 billion in revenue in 2023, or 33% of all arts revenues. And they were comparing back to 2012, and everything had sort of increased, although not necessarily in every case in real dollars adjusted for inflation. But there were definitely increases in activity overall.
Last but not least, community building. We all know it. Everybody here in the space knows it, that our media arts centers, our festivals are not just places for media artists or media arts connoisseurs. It's where community comes together in so many ways. And not only does like community come together as in artists or non-artists, but also we have pretty much all disciplines come through our doors to collaborate, to work together. It's a real hub, and it has different functions in urban or rural contexts. But it's always been, I mean, we've heard these stories of, the kid in a small town who's like, people always thought I was really weird, but I went to the Media Arts Center and I was one of them and kind of normal, and they embraced me, and I had a place to be and grow. Media arts organizations support over 1.5 million participants every year. This is, again, the numbers that we have in this document are numbers that are verified. Barbara and I had a lot of fun going through the CADAC and trying to make sense of the way they are presenting their data there. But at least we were able to pull some real numbers there, so we can bring those numbers. This is why this is the 2025 kit. For the next election, there will be new numbers in the new edition of this kit. It promotes, the community building promotes social connection and reduces isolation. We provide lifelong learning opportunities for all ages, and enhance the quality of life across socioeconomic groups. Creators of all disciplines at all stages of their career come together in our organizations, and we make it possible for them to learn new skills, access equipment at a reasonable cost, and gather with others. I really feel like, we in the kit we're saying a weakened sector has broad impacts. A weakened media arts sector has an impact on the entire arts ecosystem. I want to just say a strengthened media arts sector uplifts and sustains everyone. So you know, again, it's one of those things that does resonate with people who are decision makers, because, you know, nobody will say we are against community building. Municipalities work within the index, the Canadian Index of well-being, and the things that media arts provides in that regard is like ticking up all the boxes to support that. Using this toolkit, if you have it open and if you look at it, where we have the different value propositions, we give you the core argument, we give you an elevator pitch, we give you a scenario for a longer extended meeting, the sit-down meeting. We give you arguments of the work is what we do, what does this mean? And then we answer the so what question, because the so what question is one of those things that comes up. The key thing is that with this kit, you know, you pick your battle, you pick your audience, you see what matches with your audience. Use the kit's data for the big stories that you want to tell, but for the local story, for the smaller story, bring your own story. I know everybody has them. When we were starting to put this thing together and we were looking at stories, everybody in the room was like, yeah, well, we did this and this and this and this and this and this. So we're just like trying to also inspire you to kind of go look into your own data and the work that you've done to bring to a political decision maker or to a voter. And the power of so what is a big deal in this one, I think, because people will ask that, so what, right? What's the big deal about media arts? One of the other reasons why we did the specific kit is because there are other kits out to support arts generally. I think it is a really important thing for the world to know, and for us to be able to articulate what our work, our particular work is, that makes it important and really vital to be part of a cultural ecosystem. I think that's it in summary. Handing it over to Rachel, who is kind of going to moderate our Q&A.
Great. So we wanted to hear from all of you about what advocacy situations are you preparing for? Are there certain decision makers in your areas that you plan to approach with this toolkit, or certain people in granting offices that this will be helpful to bring to? And let me see if you can, if anyone wants to contribute, if you turn your camera on and put your hand up, or if you want to just react to the hand raise through Zoom, we can keep an eye out for that. And if I'm not seeing you, please just
I was just going to say, maybe Tessa, maybe you can take the slide down for this Q&A so we can see everybody in the room. Thank you.
I was just going to say that here in Ontario, we are in a post-election period, but I actually think it's a really important time for us to do advocacy at the provincial level, even though we have now not the same Conservative government re-elected with a significant majority again. I think it's really critical for us to advocate at the provincial level, because essentially provincial funding has been flat for now 16 years in the province of Ontario. We do have a minister who has sort of tried to signal, I think, support for the arts in a rather vague way. And I think we have to kind of push on that because we haven't really seen any attention to the arts. Obviously, in this last election, which was just last month, we're not, nobody was paying attention to really anything except Donald Trump, which is really problematic, because this has been a terrible government for almost any publicly funded system of anything.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah.
Hi, I guess I just wanted to say thank you for this package, toolkit. It's going to be, I think, really useful to help us shape our funding applications, etc. I think for our organization here in the Yukon, it'll be really helpful to really emphasize how much it's the arts and the Yukon, like the film group, can be more of a community builder and a community center for the community. And I think we're going to be working on building a lot more relationships and partnerships within the community for that very reason. And that, this will be a really big help for sure, I think. Yeah, thank you.
Nice, thanks for that. Anyone else from some other provinces want to contribute? What's happening in your area? Yeah, Vicky.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about what's happening in Alberta. We're doing a lot of advocacy efforts with our provincial funder, the Alberta Foundation for the Arts. They've miraculously have an increase through our conservative government, but there's a lot of advocacy on how that's being spent. And so this particular year, there's supposed to be the increase to arts organization, but a lot of that is going to a large institution that was suddenly thrusted upon the AFA from the Alberta government. And so and it's obviously not an institution that's media arts, so we're trying really hard to in our sector to kind of advocate for the value of a media arts hub especially in Calgary. We have so much investment in the performing arts here in Calgary with the Arts Commons project. And there's just nothing like our International Film Festival just lost their theater. There's one independent cinema left in the entire city. And so there's a lot of advocacy going to help create space for our organizations. And I think this toolkit will definitely help. I shared with the advocacy committee a visual arts center who was trying to advocate for an MP, and they were having such a hard time trying to collect this sort of data to be able to tell these stories. And so having this toolkit for our community is going to be so helpful in having more precise stories that they can talk to their MPs about. Yeah, especially during this election, I think it's going to be really helpful. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really great to hear. I mean, not good to hear about all the funding cuts, but good that this can hopefully make a difference in advocacy.
And maybe I'll just jump back on kind of Chris's and Vicky's point around like using the toolkit in a post-election period. Like I think we were, when the toolkit got created or when the toolkit was first envisioned, it was not even for an electoral period, right? It was like stagnating CCA funding, stagnating Canadian heritage funding. And just to say, that's just because Imaa is a federal ASO, but of course everyone has their provincial issues. And then when it's kind of gotten created, and because Imaa is encouraging everyone to vote at the federal election, it became a bit of like an election toolkit in this exact moment. But I think what Chris and Vicky are saying is that in the best circumstances, in the worst circumstances post-election, I think we already need to be thinking about what that will look like at the federal level as well. And kind of familiarizing ourselves with these arguments, which are by no means exhaustive or, universally applicable, but they are kind of like, even for me in my job, which this is 80% of my job, having those quick sentences on hand goes a long way to having a presence and having a voice about the value of our sector specifically.
Yeah, thanks, Barbara. I totally agree. It's like, because it's like when we had we start out with the people ask what's media arts, and we all go, yeah, well, what's media arts? So it was a real goal for us to kind of give people a way to articulate really quickly and concise to somebody who has no clue of what the hell it is we do. But you say Adam McGowan and like, oh yeah, then they kind of understand that. And then you say, community skills building and workshops. I'm like, okay, that kind of resonates, right? And that's why, I think we had about 20 value propositions that we kind of boiled down because it was necessary to do, which also again made this document, I think, more useful and applicable. There's something in there for every situation. There is something there for your progressive supporter, but there's also something there for a economically conservative point of view, without without not telling the truth or spinning the truth. So I think we can take this stuff and be really confident going into spaces to talk about the work that we do. Alita, hi, Manu's here. What are you hearing from your membership?
Well, like Chris was saying, we were just sort of sideswiped by this snap provincial election. And yeah, I think people are keen to get their hands on these toolkits. There's excitement around mobilizing around something that we want to see some support at the federal level. For our organization specifically, we're very lucky to have MP Julie Zerovitz in our representing us, Liberal MP. So Mano isn't partisan, and yet this particular Liberal MP is a very strong advocate for the arts at the federal level, and also for basic income. And so I think there's more conversations to be had. And also, as Barbara is saying, moving beyond the election. If this MP who we've built a relationship with is still there, then we can use the toolkit to further advocate.
Thank you. I thought I'd give a voice to a question that Sean Jordan put in the chat. So Sean says, thank you for this. I have a question that is more rhetorical. Are there other sustainable models aside from government funding or begging from the privatized capitalist arena? I don't imagine we have the answer yet, but just putting it out there. And some examples might be cooperatives, multi-streams of funding, new sharing of resources, etc.
Yeah, thanks for that question. I'm actually happy it's asked, and I'm happy to tackle it. I think you'll notice that the toolkit skirts away from making a monetary value proposition for the media arts in and of itself, although that is something that governments and funders and private funders specifically want, return on investment. And that is a value of Imaa. I, as a director, and I don't want to speak for the whole staff, but the board agrees that this argument has some pretty significant shortcomings, especially when it comes to equity and trying to make a healthier, safer, more flourishing sector and an arts ecology as a whole. So while the toolkit exists to serve the current structures, Imaa is very, very, very committed to also sustaining and bolstering specifically mutual aid, different financial models that are based on reciprocity rather than extraction. And Yeah, and then like resource sharing. So Sean, we can chat maybe on email about the different resource sharing structures that already exist within the Independent Media Arts Alliance. But that work, that community building work and mutual aid work is really kind of works in tandem with this, and is just like grassroots community organizing, like the committee, like meeting on these calls and getting to know your colleagues. So that is kind of ongoing work throughout. And maybe Annetta wants to say a few words as well. Just
And you want my system change rant?
yes, I think this is the moment for it.
It's the don't look to those who want to maintain the status quo for your salvation. I'm gonna make a t-shirt with that, and I'm just gonna wear it in meetings all the time. Yeah, thank you, Sean. I think this toolkit has been born out of a necessity to fight the powers that be at this moment, and to give people some tools. But the conversation is very much around changing the systems, and you know, and I'm not talking about diversification of revenue streams, because that is just maintaining the structures that brought us here, as we're watching south of the border, where those things are completely being dismantled and falling apart now. Yeah, I would love also Sean to connect, and maybe come and participate in this conversation around that. This is definitely one of the things that's at the forefront, I think, of what we're thinking when we're getting together in the Imaa space.
Just wondering if there has been a lot of work on fundraising amongst the community as well. I think there is a desire for people to want to donate, or be able to provide something to an organization, and it's that classic, even $5 can help build a pot of money. So I'm wondering if other people have worked on that aspect as well, like really building a solid donor pool, I guess. Not just privatized, capitalized, big company kind of thing, but also like just the general public.
I could talk to something that VTape worked on collectively with 4 other organizations. We did a large renovation project in 2016 to 2018 called The Commons at 401, and worked with 4 other nonprofit arts organizations. And what's important in that mix of organizations is that 2 of us are not charities and 3 of us are charities. So VTape cannot be a charity because we're a distributor and we're trying to earn money for individual artists. So we can't get charitable status. So we can't do that kind of fundraising. But because we were working in tandem with other organizations, they could do charitable fundraising while we were doing grant writing. And we did do fundraising both with the community, so those small $20, $100, or $50 checks, as well as trying to do some corporate fundraising. And ultimately we were successful with one sort of major corporate donor, and then a couple small ones. And that really made a huge difference. So having the different kinds of organizations work together in different ways. VTape is much more built on the self-generated revenue model, because we could not ever be a charity right from the start. And so we generate revenue from distribution activity and from providing technical services. But we don't have really the opportunity to do that kind of charitable fundraising that, for example, our festival partners are really, really good at, because they have a lot of public visibility, and corporate sponsors love to get in front of audiences that way.
Yeah, Netta.
The advocacy work will not end with the federal election. The advocacy committee is that place that helps kind of position our aspirations, and one of them is to find other ways of being within what is looking to be a post-capitalist system. I was reading in The Guardian this morning, climate change is destroying capitalism. Says the World Insurance something Bureau. So, you know, so the things are happening, and I think we're well positioned to put our heads together to look at other models, and then advocate for them within community, because I don't see advocacy only as advocating to the powerful and gatekeepers, but I also see advocacy within our community and community building, which we really noticed at the last Imaa conference when we were talking about this. We had a whole section on resource sharing and mutual aid, and even within our enlightened community, there are people who are like, I'm not really sure if I want to do that kind of thing. You know, they're holding on to what they have. So there's a lot of work that we need to do within our community to do this kind of work.
Thanks, Amanda. If there's no more final thoughts for the Q&A, thanks to everyone for contributing. I think we could move on to the recap.
Yeah, I made that slide and I didn't put anybody's name to it. I think there's also, aside from the toolkit, there's a very handy dandy one-pager that summarizes all those things. Download the toolkit, distribute the toolkit, but like really toss it out to your colleagues and members. And even if it just gets people to think about the stuff, not actively doing it, but having it kind of on their horizon. And the one pager is really good on that one, because it's like this thing that you can have on hand when somebody knocks on your door. The other thing is through that advocacy committee at Imaa that is like over the next few weeks. In this work that we need to do, there's like 3.5 weeks left. If you need support of any kind, we're here to do that. We do have an advocacy at Imaa email, I believe. So if people want to just reach out and want some specific support, bounce some ideas off, or need maybe a bit of coaching too, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And I thank you all for being here, and I thank my advocacy committee colleagues, and thank you, Barbara, putting the names in the chat of all the people who are involved. I want to thank you guys, and again, I'm a staff, and on top of everything else, like creating an awesome new website, taking on this thing and in a real hurry. Barbara, over to you.
Yeah, so before getting into Arts Vote, I just kind of want to reiterate, a conviction that we have as Imaa staff. Our board is comprised of Imaa members, and as a staff, and for myself specifically, I've worked in the sector my entire professional life. I know it intimately, and I can speak on behalf of you guys easily. But that is based on my own values and my own information. And so hearing from you consistently, as with this toolkit, where the members themselves decided on what the priorities were, totally in consultation with what we hear, more broadly, but your voice is the alliance. We are just kind of the loudspeaker for it. So having your involvement, having you use the toolkit, having you advocate for yourselves, and then come to us for any support that you need, is really how this works. And and I hope that we can kind of keep working strongly in that direction. Having said that, I also have had the privilege over the last 4 or 5 months on being the co-chair of the Arts Vote Committee at the Canadian Arts Coalition. And the Canadian Arts Coalition is a nonpartisan, kind of broad-based, volunteer-run gathering of arts organizations from across the country and across discipline. So really the biggest possible umbrella. And at Imaa, we tend to work that way. Just because media arts power on its own cannot be super strong, and so making sure that we have the right partners really gets us somewhere. And this Arts Vote 2025 is the campaign to get out the vote for this election. And again, those who know me personally know that, again, I tend to hope for non-capitalist systems and for some sort of revolution in the future. But right now, the reality that we are in, these elections are, I cannot overemphasize how consequential they could be for arts and culture. So we are really invested in everyone having the information they need to be able to vote and to be able to vote strategically for arts and culture. So there is a toolkit which kind of outlines some questions you can ask and some facts about arts in Canada more broadly that are really applicable across the board. The site also has ways for you to find, who, again, like 338 Canada that Aneta put in the chat to see whether your riding is a swing riding, information about candidates, information about which parties have arts and culture platforms. If this is one of the issues that you're voting on this election, it's really a good place to go and to mobilize. And again, the Imaa team is super hands-on and probably a little bit too in the weeds with the federal election these days. But we are happy to provide support for anyone wondering, what their riding is, how to register, how to vote, whether you've done it before, whether you've never done it, really, don't miss this one. And if you have an org or you're part of an organization, print out a bunch of these toolkits, distribute them to your members, to audiences, just to ensure that, all of us get out this in 25 days. So that's my 2 cents on that. I want to thank everybody for being here. I cannot thank the Advocacy Committee enough for hosting us and for all of you for being here. Their email is in the chat. The Arts Vote, Imaa hasn't sent it out. We will share it if you're subscribed to our newsletter, it will be part of our newsletter next Thursday. But you can go to the Canadian Arts Coalition website and all the information will be there too. Oh, and I forgot to mention, yes, and we will send this out to participants, but we do have a feedback survey on the toolkit. If there's anything that you didn't really want to say here, or if you have feedback about gaps or anything like that you'd like to share with us, please do so. It is like everything is a living document. We can alter it, we can fine tune it. The committee meets once a month and is happy to do that work. So please let us know. Thanks, everybody.